If you want to say you want to cut through your marketing or you want to go viral, then you have to accept that doing so is the exception to the rule. Sustainability is too easy to lean into being preachy or patronizing. Influencers or TikTok or whatever it might be become like Hail Mary passes from C-suite people who are like, right, obviously that's the answer, we're just going to do that. You're going to win far less often than you're going to not win. But not winning isn't losing.
Hello and welcome to the Marketers Debrief from Journey Further. My name's Billy and I'll be your host. It is our first episode of the brand new series, which I'm very, very excited about. And I am joined by Global Communications Director of Allbirds, Lee Price. Lee, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me. You didn't mention it was the first one when you asked me to join, so no pressure, eh?
None at all, none at all. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm super excited to get going. I think most people listening to this will know, but could we start with a brief overview of Allbirds as a brand, the mission they're on, and the role you play at the business?
Yeah, Allbirds is a clumsy phrase to go straight in with, but is a sustainable sneaker company, is the way we describe it here in the US. They were founded by a then professional footballer called Tim Brown, who had an idea for a shoe because he was sick of all the free gear that he was sent. Tough life, obviously, but his own preferences for like a minimalist design aesthetic clashed with the often colourful and in-your-face boots that his kit provider was sending him. That sort of started the itch for him in terms of, I'm going to make my own shoes. And he proved out that you can do this for a Kickstarter campaign that sold out in, 4 minutes and went viral, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually through his wife's college roommate, he met a guy called Joey Svillinger, his co-founder, who was working in sustainable materials. I should have checked this beforehand, but it's something about like microalgae surfboards, which sounds insane. I don't know what algae is, let alone microalgae. But he therefore knew the power and frankly the business opportunity that sustainable materials could have. So this design vision, this sustainable vision came together to create Allbirds. I joined in 2021 and I lead brands, comms globally. You said it better than I did, but yes, I lead comms.
Amazing. Oh, well, yeah, one of the big reasons why I wanted to get you on and speak today is that internally we've been talking a lot recently about how to effectively market sustainability and a sustainable message. And it's clear from what you've just spoke about. And if you take one brief look on Allbirds socials or website, the brand is rooted in sustainability. But I can imagine that trying to tell a sustainable message offers both amazing opportunities, but also challenges. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that challenge is the reason I joined Allbirds, frankly. I don't know that many brands are getting it right. Sustainability is too easy to lean into being preachy or patronizing or earnest, which is probably the worst one. Inspiring sounds dramatic, but it's harder to make it human and relatable and galvanizing. But if you can, that's the real power of it. It's too easy to be boring about sustainability. And the risk of that is people do want to do the good thing. Most people would love to buy sustainable stuff, but why should they have to compromise or why should they have to pay more? And unfortunately, the association, not completely inaccurately, of the word sustainable is a bit shit, a bit expensive, or a bit of both. And that's why that trifecta of things I mentioned earlier is so important, that yes, these shoes are more sustainable than almost every other shoe on the market. But that's not enough on its own. They have to feel great. And we strongly believe they're the most comfortable shoes in the world. In some ways, then the sustainability part becomes the cherry on the cake. Although I'd actually like cherries on my cake. I think that's a bizarre addition to a chocolate cake. But
I actually
really
do.
You know what I mean? Do you? You really do? What does that mean about you?
Big cherry fan.
Okay.
And why do you think many brands do fall down, or some brands fall down, when trying to tell that message in a fun, in a humorous, in a exciting way?
Because it's hard to do. It's kind of counterintuitive to do it that way. And there is a lot driven by fear or inauthenticity. The fear thing is important because more so than many topics, and there are a few topics in this area, sustainability is one where people just don't want to not have a perfect story. And in many ways, would almost rather have no story than a 7 out of 10 story. But when actually, as we've learned hands-on, since our inception, there's no perfect sustainability story. If you're making shoes, technically that's not sustainable, full stop, right? So leaning into the uncertainty, leaning into the imperfections is really hard, particularly for those who don't work in marketing like us. Like, we love that stuff, but if you're a founder or a C-suite member of a company, it's kind of a risk, and it's not always going to pay off. So there is fear, and then there's also just this sort of kind of thoughtlessness that, a bit like, it's been talked about a lot, but Pride Month, I always remember that the Pride sandwich that a certain retailer launched for Pride Month, and it's just like shoehorning in sustainability because it's trending or it's a buzzword. But when actually your version of sustainability is like so shallow, it's planting a tree, it's not having plastic packaging. Sadly, those things are like not even the bare minimum. So yeah, it's either overthinking it or just not giving it enough thought, I would say.
Yeah, so such a good point. I was speaking to a colleague just earlier today, and she said the exact same thing, which was that brands are too scared to tell that story if it isn't squeaky clean because of a fear of, yeah, as you say, being called out on all the things that you're not doing rather than the things that you are doing. But as you say, no journey is perfect. Taking that risk in an authentic manner should land, and clearly does land.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, and I hate saying this, is sometimes people who do take that risk kind of get punished. I remember Lego revised their sustainability targets, and basically to add more time, because it's complex and it's hard and it's impossible. That we have our own targets that are to get to near zero by 2030, but part of our language there is very specifically says there's a percentage of this we can't guarantee, we don't know. It relies on innovation and investment and things beyond our control. But classic social media, I guess, there's no room for nuance anymore. So Lego set really aggressive sustainability targets, which they should have been applauded for, and then they really openly and transparently shared, hey, we're not going to get there by here. This is what we learned. We're going to set a new target for a new deadline. And to say the reactions mix is probably underselling it slightly, but well, that's the conversation we need to have. But because of, you see this so-called backlash against the Lego thing, if you're another company in a similar position, why would you bother? Like, it's easy to be safe in this space, and I don't think it's powerful or effective to be safe, but it's easier to be.
If I said the say can do gap to you, Lee, would you know? Have you heard that before? Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
So this is a piece of some external research that we've been looking into as part of a sustainable retail campaign that we've recently gone live with. And for anyone who doesn't know, for the listeners, it's a bit of research that found that I think it's around 71% of consumers said that they want to buy sustainable, but only 12% actually do. And I'm curiously, what are your thoughts on that statistic? And from your perspective, what kind of methods, what strategies do you guys advise or put into place to try and bridge that gap?
I drove my kids to school this morning, and it occurred to me how many Teslas are on the road. And if you think about it, Tesla's kind of, and I know that they're the big man's controversial, but as a company, as a product, technically as a sustainable product, right? But they appealed to our imagination and our hearts. They created a sleek-looking, futuristic, innovative, cool fucking car that also happened to be electric, or whatever combinations they now have. And I guess that's kind of the sweet spot. Just make a great product. And even though we as a company were founded on this sustainable insight, that can't always be the first thing we say. It can't always be the first thing we show. It has to be, again, I don't want to get you too excited, but the cherry on the cake thing, it has to be part of the story. And, footwear in particular is so cluttered. You have to show them that there's a real value to you as an individual. You don't have to sacrifice to do the right thing, because, I rifle through my bloody recycling and I pull it out. Then I see next door not doing the same, or, whatever it might be. Like, it's hard to do the right thing sometimes.
Yeah, you're so right. Product is always king, and make something great and people will want it. And in terms of your audiences, the Allbirds audience and the audience of people who want to buy sustainably and then will buy sustainably, particularly if it is a fantastic product, how do you go about finding that audience?
won't surprise you to hear it's slightly convoluted for us, because I think the younger you go, the more open to buying sustainably you'll find consumers are. But obviously, that's kind of the inverse to disposable income and a desire to spend $100 on a pair of shoes that isn't Nike or Adidas or whatever. So there's this kind of conflicting two lines going past each other. I'm sure there's a mathematical phrase for that. So we have audiences like there's a big demographic of our customers who are, probably 30s, 40s, doing well in their careers. This speaks to their ethos. It's kind of a badge of honor. But then a lot of our followers, or what I would say are brand fans, will be almost 10, 15 years younger, 20 years younger, and really believe in the ethos entirely. And we have this interesting contrast of audiences, I'd say, and appealing to both parts of those is an interesting dynamic.
For sure. And it must be really exciting knowing that, generalizing, but plenty of research has shown that that sort of Gen Z younger audience are so much more aware of issues that they want to play a positive part in, such as sustainability. How do you try and go about reaching that sort of Gen Z millennial demographic?
Yeah, I kind of see that challenge opportunity as like not a race against time, not too deep, but like Allbirds has this powerful head start. When I joined, I was taken aback by the legitimacy of the sustainability. I was skeptical at first, to be honest, but it's legit. The whole company was built this way, so it's easier to continue being this way than trying to reverse a 100-year brand. We've got to cut through with compelling emotional messaging that grows awareness of Allbirds before the rest of the industry catches up. And part of our approach to that, perhaps counterintuitively, is continuing to open source all of our innovations, our best materials, our breakthroughs, to partner with industry rivals, in inverted commas, to give them the opportunity to join us. And that's obviously a calculated approach of, sure, we will give them our thing, but in return, we're getting some of their spotlight, channeling those themes of like counterintuitivity. I don't know, I keep choosing hard words today, sorry. Being counterintuitive, being relatable, human, that sort of dry wit, not taking ourselves too seriously. All these attributes have to come through in our marketing at a basic level. If the takeaway someone has from seeing something is, oh, I've heard of Allbirds now, that's a great start.
Yeah, you've done your job. Are there any brands, any businesses that are doing exactly that really, really well, are running campaigns, producing ads which stop you in your tracks?
Yeah. And again, I'm quite fussy on this one, so there's not hundreds, but someone or a brand that's killing it on LinkedIn, which I think is a fascinating platform, by the way. The opportunity to be counterintuitive there is so ripe and frankly easy because it's full of beige wankers otherwise. Surreal, the cereal brand,
so true.
Their social media stuff is not just consistently good, but like at a frightening rate. Like they're doing good, interesting, subversive stuff almost daily, and it just underscores actually how simple it can be. Like the whole reason Paddy Power's brand blew up all those years ago was because they let the social media team do their thing over there, and therefore the social media team did what they were best at. Today, I think a lot of brands have overarching, whether it's, I don't know, CMOs or CEOs even, who are getting involved in that stuff and adding layers and allowing stuff to be less quick, less rough around the edges, and therefore less interesting. So Surreal are excellent.
I want to touch upon the likes of TikTok and social media in general. I see Allbirds have a very active TikTok channel, and I know that it's a conversation that's many businesses, brands are having. Is do we get ourselves on TikTok? Should we? Is it the right audience? Is it for us? And then the majority of the time, the answer is usually yes. Where do you come down on that?
Well, you're going to have to eventually, so why not now? I guess the broader issue is, well, it's twofold. One is the resources, like social media teams in many places, not everywhere, tend to be underinvested. So you have one or two people and they've got to do the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, what it's called now, the LinkedIn and the TikTok. That is hard. A lot of people who work adjacent to brand marketing, particularly in the C-suite, struggle with the sort of the colourful qualitative world that we live in, and that you can't write an equation down and guarantee how this brand thing is going to work. These trends more broadly, like influencers or TikTok or whatever it might be, become like Hail Mary passes from C-suite people who are like, right, obviously that's the answer. We're just going to do that, and that's going to make us win. And that's usually within a really limited time frame, sort of a trial and error approach to investment and resources, and therefore it's not set up for success. And to your point, that's how you can really see brands that are truly social media first, or even just second. Like the amount of times that social media teams aren't invited to the table for ideation around brand campaigns or broader marketing is kind of crazy, because it's like the modern customer service experience, right? It's like if you work in our store, you're the first person someone will speak to. Online, it's our social channels, and I see too many brands who are just flogging stuff. And why would I follow an account that's trying to make me buy shoes that I don't really know about yet, right? Like, make me fall in love before you try and take me to bed.
We have a social team, influencer team, and I hear them on calls daily, kind of telling prospective clients, don't make ads, make TikToks. You've got to create content that is applicable and right and bespoke for that channel, because a piece of content that will land on TikTok is far different to one that might land on Twitter or X, whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's that equation thing I was speaking about, where you're going to win far less often than you're going to not win. But not winning isn't losing. So I think if you want to say you want to cut through your marketing, or you want to go viral, whatever those words are, then you have to accept that doing so is the exception to the rule. But I think there's not much patience, partly because of, I would say, a lack of understanding or true understanding of how these platforms and channels work, and kind of a bit of fear, like we spoke about fear earlier. Right? If you don't understand something, it's easier just to send another CRM email, right? Or it's easier just to do a sale, or whatever the commercial X plus Y equals Z. If you can't quantify it, there's a leap of faith, and not everyone's willing to do that. And, that's kind of understandable. But if you want to build a brand, you're going to have to take lots of leaps.
Finally, I'd like to end with a small plug and then a final question, if that's okay.
Okay.
So, small plug first. So we have a book club here at Journey Further, the Journey Further Book Club. It's a global community of ambitious marketers who read sort of the latest and greatest non-fiction books to develop in both personal and professional lives. That was plug over. Final question. If you were to recommend a book to the Journey Further Book Club community, what would it be and why?
I kind of have two books to suggest, but they're kind of the same book, really. They are Dave Trott's Creative Mischief, and I checked this, George Lois's Damn Good Advice. And they're both very similar in that they're small, glossy books with punchy, direct text. There's not loads of text, presented in a really easy to consume format. That what I turn to these books for is when I'm feeling creatively stifled or worn out, or like I just need to get my head out my arse, basically, and refresh. These books, in slightly different ways, but are great at reminding you how terrifyingly simple creativity can be, if only you'd let it. When I was a journalist, I used to write a column called 10 Things I Can't Live Without. I dare say now that, along with Lurpak Butter, which I miss so much over here in the States, these two books are probably edging their way onto that list.
Final question. What are two other things that are on that list?
I
won't ask for all 10, just two.
Actual English chocolate. We don't know how good we've got it in England. Like, there is dairy milk and Cadbury's available here in the US. It's not the real thing. Don't do it. And then the second thing, I don't know, probably my phone. The chocolate thing really surprised me over here. I thought that America would be the home of amazing chocolate and candy, and I haven't quite cracked that one yet.
Well, you'll have to report back if you ever do.
I wouldn't hold your breath.